our pom-poms, let's take a look at two that I have. This is one that I bought last year to add to the top of some beanies. As you can see, it's a long pile fur and has a detachable snap on the bottom. You sew one part of the snap to the item that you're attaching it to, and the other stays on the pom-pom. This is great in case you need to remove it to wash your items because these do not hold up well in the wash. This white one is one that I made, and you can see it looks really similar to the one that I purchased last year. Long pile fur works best for these pom-poms. I would say that the one that I used, the white, is a medium to long pile fur, but you can see the blue one is much longer. Okay, so let's get started. First, you're going to trace off a circle onto the back of your fur fabric. This one is about 6.5 inches in diameter. We have some downloadable templates in the fan group you can use. I will link that in the description. Okay, so as you're cutting your fur fabric, the best way that I've found to do this is to use scissors and to cut from the back. So what you want to do is as you're cutting, you kind of wiggle the blades of your scissors between the backing of the fur fabric and the fur itself. It's hard to explain it and it's hard to see it, but you can feel it as you're cutting. Your blades just kind of slip between the furry part of the fabric and that backing. Finish cutting out your circle, and then you're going to want to pull any loose pieces of fur away from the edges. It is going to shed a little bit even with using scissors, but a lot less than it would if you were using something like a rotary cutter. Now that we have our circle cut out, we're going to work on our pom-pom. You want to take your needle and thread and you're going to run a quick gathering stitch along the edges of your circle. Let's talk about thread. The best type of thread for this project is going to be upholstery thread. This is a much higher weight of thread, so it's going to stand up a little bit better. If you don't have any handy, you can use embroidery floss, or you could even just double or triple up on your strands of thread that you're using in your needle. That's what I did here. I just doubled up my strands of thread. Once you complete your gathering stitch, you'll want to pull gently but firmly to gather your circle into a little ball. Now leave a hole in the middle because we are going to add some polyfill. The polyfill will help your pom-pom stay full but keep it light. You could, if you don't have polyfill, you could add small bits of fabric or yarn scraps, but you want to make sure whatever you add to the center is very light. If it's not light, it could cause your pom-pom to sort of topple over, and that's not something that we want. Now that we have our filling added, we're going to close this hole in the pom-pom. This part is a little time consuming and can be a little tricky. I found that the best way is to go back and forth across the opening just through the very top of the fabric. You do need to make sure that you're going through the backing and not just the fur. It can be a little bit hard to see. I used a contrasting thread for this part so I could see where my thread was going and where my stitches were, but you're just going to want to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until the whole hole is closed up. Now that we've gotten our hole closed, we want to make sure that we tie off our threads very securely. I probably tied this off a little more than necessary, but it's always better safe than sorry. Once you have finished tying off, you're going to want to clip your threads, and then we can get ready to start attaching our snap. Clip the threads after you finish tying off. Now let's take a look at our pom-pom. As you can see, that hole that we had before that was pretty large, we've closed very tightly. Now we're going to start adding our snaps. So let's take a look at these sew-on snaps. So your sew-on snaps will come in two pieces. There is what's called a socket and a stud. The socket has the hole that the stud will go into. So we will attach the socket to the back of the pom-pom and the stud to our garment. Along the edges of the snap, there are 4 to 6, sometimes even more little holes. We just use these to tack the snap on to the pom-pom. So you're going to want to loop the thread through the backing of the fur fabric, through that little hole, and then back into the fur. I did it about 6 times on each of my holes in my snap, and that seemed to work pretty well for me. So let's take a look at our pom-pom. Our pom-pom is finished. We have our socket attached to the back of the pom-pom, and we have our stud, which is ready to be attached to our garment. Normally, I recommend anytime that you're using snaps that you add interfacing. For this particular set, I skipped it because I wanted my sister-in-law to be able to remove the snap. But you would add it right behind where that snap is sitting at. The interfacing helps prevent stress tears in your fabric from the use of the snaps. All you have to do is snap the socket and the stud together, and your pom-pom will be attached to wherever you need it. For this look, I did a little bunny tail on the Norah Night shorts for my niece, and it came out super cute, and my sister-in-law can just easily remove that snap, throw it in the wash, and then add it back on when she's done. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and sewing along with me. Until next time, friends.